Good morning, good peoples. All right, I've got some Tesla deep dive. When I was doing the Rex dec- declaration, and apologize, guys, I mentioned that Rex comes out about 4:30 Eastern time with these things, so the market's closed. Now, sometimes you can buy them in after hours and it counts. Part of it has to do with your brokerage. I never like to risk that, to be honest, but it's a little annoying. So anybody that's thinking, I'm not getting them out, that's when they really come out. I mean, somebody needs to tell Rex that they should get them out earlier, but not all companies want you to buy at that point in time. So, um, anyway, let me jump in and get through this. Oh, so here's what the funds did. And then I've got sort of a special treat for you. So I'm going to compare all the Tesla funds, the only one I didn't have prepared when I did the rec stuff. And then I'm going to do the summary, which I did for the other recs, on how these look against each other over, say different periods of time and the same time frame instead of just the last 5 days. And then I'm going to do a deep dive on what I see going forward. I picked this up. Somebody had asked Grok, okay, and if anybody doesn't know what Grok is, most of you do. But you have DeepSeek, you have AI, you have Google's Gemini, you have, you know, all these different AI tools that you can use for free, and then they have the paid version. Well, Grok is very similar. It's just that Tesla's put a lot into Grok, and Grok is really powerful when you go with its high end tool. Now, I don't know which level of Grok they utilize, but the base, and I'll go ahead and tell you that, and then I'll jump into these. What they did is they said, hey, can you predict how many robo taxis that Tesla will have at the end of 2025 and then up into each year going into 2030? And then can you also predict what the Tesla price is likely to be at the end of 2025 and then going into all the way up year by year into 2030? It turned out I didn't see the 2029, but it's no big deal. We got 2025 year ending, 2026 year ending, 27, 28, and 2030. Um, so really cool stuff, and I'm going to deep dive on that. But here's the Tesla competitors over the last really 5 days. So we can go right here and we can see that this was a 2.2, on the 28th. Let's go to the 29th. So we had a negative. Obviously, my formatting, even though I copied it over, didn't work on some of these. So let me, it's one of those little OCD things that drives me kind of batty here when it's not correct. Where do I have it correct? That's the real question. Let's see if I paste it here as a format. Yeah, it took. So I should be able to drag this down and have it. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to do it everywhere. We can just look at it, guys. It's just, I want to get through this thing. The market's going to open. All right. So with a minus 1.26 on the 29th in the underlying. So what did Granite shares do? Well, they did a minus 0.44. That's pretty good. And what did TSLP? And by the way, there was a payment declared for TSLP. So when I summarize everything, they paid 45 cents. That's brand new today. So they had paid 45. They always pay like 50, 55, 45 in a general area. And they tend to have very little NAV erosion. Okay? But so going across these guys, I don't see anything really standing out. Um, let's get a down 3% day. So we had 277 for Granite. We only had 2%. Makes sense for Curve. We had 391 for TSLW because got leverage. So add 120% to 330. That's probably the number you're going to get. How about Tesla? Oh, they did good. If you can get 80% only of the down move, anything like that's excellent. Okay. How did TSII Rex do? Well, they did the same as Tesla, 255, 257. All right, let's go to an update. What did Tesla on Monday? 2.19% it rose, 302 to 309. What did Granite shares TSYY went up 145. So you got about 75% of that. What did TSLP? Oh, they went up 1.77. What about TSLW? 1.67. Okay, fair enough. And then what about Tesla? 1.99. Very good. And then TSII with leverage did the best. So that kind of fits with some of the stuff. Nothing earth shaking there. Let's just jump over. I got one more sheet to show you. Where is that sheet? That is the question before I go into this really kind of cool price projection. You're going to like this, I think. I certainly like it, so hopefully you do. Now, if I can find, once I went to Google Sheets, I have this hard time sometimes finding my stuff because I'm so used to Excel and it just being an online tool as opposed to an app on the computer the way I run mine. I didn't run Microsoft 365. It leaves me hanging out there. Why are these separating like this? This one is not raised up. That's, yeah, I get it, but I don't really know why. All right, I apologize, guys. This is all, once I get into the Google Sheets, it just when I have multiple sheets is really the only time I have a problem. Clearly, I'm having a problem now. All right, so out goes that. I can't do the comparison, guys, unless I can figure out how to find it. Let me try to open it another sheets and see what happens, and maybe I can drag it over. I'm sure I can. Yeah, I'll just drag it over and then drag it away. All right. So this is what I was trying to show you was the Tesla. Whoops, here. Yeah, I basically it's down somewhere on my screen. I'm running multi monitors, and it's just the way that you run the way you do things in OBS with Google Sheets is much different than it does with Excel. But I like a lot of the things in here. So here's the Tesla comparisons, and then I'm going to go show you the cool stuff. So who kind of wins this? Well, TSII from Rex is the winner. But look at the start dates. Everybody has 219 except for TSII. So that isn't really fair. So just looking at all 219s, you've really got Tesla doing the best. Not 5% difference, 5% better than Curve. Okay. But when you go to 6.4, what have you done for me lately? You're still going to be 116 in TSII, but look at TSYY from Granite. 3152. It's still got a huge loss, but look at that annualized pay of $62. It is paying. I mean, I wonder if this price is correct. Oh, that could mess things up. Let me get that right now. Yes, it is pretty low because it's been out there for a while. Yeah, that's fine. 842. So no problems. It's just got a massive, but the dividend annualized on that kind of a price, paying 225 when you're paying 375 from the Roundhill, and they got a $31, right? That's one fourth. So that'd be so that's what happens. You win with Granite when Granite shares pays. I still worry sometimes about NAV erosion on them, but I did buy some COYY, a very small amount. They paid real well. I want to see how that does. All right, guys. So much for that. Now I've got to find what I need to find. Now I'm probably going to have to go open it again because I can't find it. But that I can do. All right. Excuse me. So this was a fun little exercise, guys. I hope you think so. So here's the Tesla Grok price projection and then some of my explanations on what that's really telling us, how likely they came up with that number, and then some of my own thoughts around it. So again, Grok was asked to help with a projection for how many working robo-taxis Tesla could have deployed by year end, and then secondarily going into 2030. And hey, while you're at it, Mr. Smart Grok, can you tell us what the price projection is? So this is all the data. So they said, sure, 1,500 robo taxis ready for customers and operating by the end of 2025. That number jumps substantially through 2026 to 20,000. Now, Waymo, Google's Waymo, is about 600 robo taxis. So it's not unfeasible at all. 2027 takes it to 150,000. You have 800,000 by 2028. And then for some reason, 2029 wasn't in the data that I could find. So 4 million by 2030. Well, what's that mean for Tesla revenue? How can we look at that? And then when they do the stock price projection, what are they doing that on? Are they using formulas? So I'll give you my best assessment of what I think's going on. So here's the current Tesla price. Thursday, Monday, 8/4 closed at 309.26. So we're an hour away from the markets open. What's the current 30-day IV? Because guess what, guys? The options market will tell you what the likelihood of a price outcome is. So you see things like a 30-day IV. Sometimes you see a 7-day trailing. And they even have forward looking, right? In other words, 30-day IV is a forward 30-day, but they also have back calculations. What did it actually do versus what the last time it did a 30-day IV number 30 days ago, how then did it perform? So those things are constantly being done because think about it. The options market makers, they want to make money. So they need to price options in their best intelligence, right? AI involved now, certainly, so that they can win and extract the most money from retail customers. Because what happens, most call buyers lose their money. They're typically naive people that just say, "Oh man, I think that thing's going to run. This is cheap," right? Remember cheap? You won't buy $100 stock, but you'll go pay a fortune, in shares for a $5 stock, when maybe the 100 is going to triple. Oh, but that's too much money, is it? When you buy the $5 stock, you buy just as many shares that if you bought 100. So if you're not I get it sometimes if the stock's really expensive, you can't write any options if options is what you want to do. And I look at that myself. I remember doing MicroStrategy option. You know, I can get 100 shares, but am I going out and buying thousands of shares of MicroStrategy? No, I don't want to have that kind of capital tied up, even if I can afford to buy more contracts. I don't want that much in a single entity. Um, so the current IV is kind of telling us that 380 is pretty reasonable. I did the math over here and said, hey, from now to the end of the year, 380 is a 22.87 move to get there. That, when you look at it in that context, that's not so high. So it's perfectly within the realm of how the options are currently priced with a 44.8. That's why when we talk about 80% IVs and we look at Ulti sometimes, or the old Misty, right, that would have 100, and we see it sort of in SMCY and a few of the other, especially in the Ulti fund on who it goes out and buys, it averages about 80% yield on the stocks that it plays around with, right, that it chooses to own, put different option strategies in place. So here's the net result. I'm not going to be too long, guys, probably another 8 minutes on this video. I'm going to deep dive, but I'm going to move through it fairly quickly. So you can see the numbers off here. You could probably say, oh, that seems crazy, Bruce. I actually, when I look at some of this and I start analyzing it, I think it's pretty conservative. So let me explain that to you. So let's go at this. Let's ignore this for the moment, the 1500, it's small potatoes. Let's take the 2026 number and say, what are 20,000 robo-taxis deployed going to be able to do for us? Well, let's say you got one taxi and let's say it's making $150 a day. That's pretty reasonable. Okay. And let's say in 1 year, what does it make? Well, I'm counting at 365. Is there going to be some breakdowns? Maybe. Maybe we should use 340 or 350. But for now, I'm using 365. So that one robo-taxi generates gross $54,750,000, okay, for a year. So what does, hang on, why did I have this? Okay, so 20,000 taxis on a single day generate $3 million. So I got 20,000 taxis, they're all earning $150, it's $3 million. And I take that on 365 days, I got 1,095,000. Now, what kind of margins can you assume on this? I use 70%. Can vary, it could be a little higher, it could be a little bit lower. So if you take a 70% margin on this kind of number, then it gives you back not that high, and you divide it by the 3.3 billion shares, you get something like 23 cents. Well, 23 cents is about 10% of the current revenue. So you're kicking up direct bottom line by adding 10%. That's good. But maybe that alone isn't enough to drive the price. But it might be. If they keep their continuing revenue up and add that, that's pretty good. What about we step into 2027? Now we're starting to move. All these numbers move up progressively. So at 150,000, again, a very reasonable number, right, for a big company like this to be able to do. So you're now bringing $1.96 per share of increased revenue. I've already given you the growth, so it's 9.3 billion revenue. So it's 10% of the current revenue. But the bottom line really goes up here. They continue earning what they're earning, and then they add $1.96. Now you've got a very increased multiple. So this 780 is not unreasonable at all. 152% increase from where you are. But you're doubling revenue. You're really increasing the bottom line. Well, let's get even a little wilder in 2028. So these numbers work out to 51.5 billion. And then when you break that down with the same 70% margin, you're talking about 5x current revenues. Well, if they keep revenue the same and they add 5x, this is probably conservative, 1100. That could easily be 15 or 1800. PE multiples. So, not crazy. But again, they have to execute, they have to perform, it has to get market acceptance. Okay. So let's take it to the next level. Let's take it to 2030 with 4 million. That's not, I mean, 4 million taxis. How many taxis are there? That's a great question. I should Google or Grok or AI or Gemini how many taxis there are in the United States, but I'm not going to at the moment. So 255.5, I left off the point 5 billion in gross revenue. What does that add to EPS to the bottom line? $77.42 when you divide it by the 3.3 billion shares. So that is massive. This could be $3,000 and still be within line of these kind of numbers. So that's what I had for you guys. Just a little fun exercise. Listen, don't hold me to this. These numbers could be way off. I could be under. I could be conservative. They could have hiccups. But guess what? It's not the only bag in the, of it's not their only tool in the bag. They got energy management, storage management. What about Optimus, the robot? Now, that's a little bit later of a rollout, but not that many years. You're going to have some 2027, 2028, 2030. We're not even considering that yet. That's why I say that Tesla can fool us. It can make us think. Like if you ask me which income fund is just not getting it done right now with Tesla, but that's exactly what happens. These things linger until they don't linger. I know I probably don't want to own Tesla going forward. I probably, if it starts to move, want to own Roundhill for leverage or Rex. Again, I'm not hating on anything. I'm just saying Tesla looked pretty good in one of the scenarios when I showed you. But my big problem with that traditional synthetic and then selling a covered call, as they call it, and even a spread sometimes, you just can't get more than 35, 45% on the upside of the big moves. I might as well just buy the underlying and write some calls occasionally, write them way out and really expensive. I'm going to earn a little less income, but I'm not going to worry about getting capped or any of that crazy stuff. So that's what I got for you. Bottom line, if robo-taxi is anywhere at all successful, then Tesla easily has the chance to grow its stock and grow it massively. I think most of you know that, especially the people that write to me that are fans and say, hey, I like it. Elon's a brilliant guy. Love him, hate him politically, all of that kind of stuff. I get it. If anything, I kind of wish he didn't do any of that. But at the same time, I just think he's a brilliant guy. Nobody can say that he's not super smart. Um, and smart people can do incredible things if they're given a chance. He has engineering talent and he has the desire and the work ethic to sleep on the floor and get the job done. He doesn't act like a billionaire. He acts crazy at times, albeit. But it's like a savant or somebody. They're not normal. Sometimes they're so smart they're weird. We all had those guys. Was in accelerated math courses, and I had some real geeks in there. They were eating their boogers and doing things. But you talk about savants. I was good in math. These guys were extra good. A few of them. So he's almost in that category. All right, guys, that's what I got for you with Tesla, catching you up on the Tesla income funds and comparing, and just a little fun exercise. I'd love to do one of these on Palantir. Boy, I was happy with Palantir blowing it open. Pretty much knew they would. I was kind of hoping that they didn't quite blow it open so much and that they were going to go up big and then retrace, and then I was going to load up on the retrace. Probably won't get that opportunity. I'll just have to wait till the market's hating on stocks and sells off. Because it's a winner, man. It is a big time winner. All right, guys, that's what I got for you. It's Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. Not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Have a great one. Bye for now.